Council, City of Kingman City Council, on Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. This is a work session meeting, and all work session items listed are for discussion only. No action can or will be taken. The primary purpose of work session meetings is to provide the City Council with the opportunity for in-depth discussion and study of specific subjects. Public comment is not provided for on the agenda and may be made only as approved by a consensus of the Council. In appropriate circumstances, a brief presentation may be permitted by a member of the public or another interested party on an agenda item if invited by the mayor or city manager to do so. The mayor may limit or end the time for such presentations. And this evening, we have one topic, which is dedicated downtown tour bus parking. And it looks like Mr. Kellogg is here ready to inform us. Thank you.
Again, Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This evening you all had asked us to look into, because we had talked about the ability to put buses in the downtown area to make it closer to shopping and some of the restaurants and things like that. So tonight I'm going to give you just a brief presentation of some areas that we've identified, but also some clarification is that I have talked with Jack Planty over at Public Works, and there'll be some details to work out as to how we're going to handle this and timing and some things like that. But tonight is just to kind of show you a little bit about the whole bus parking thing. Currently at the powerhouse, the buses are parked out in this lot, and usually they're around towards, if you look towards the back there, they circle and in there. So that's where we park there. But the idea is how do we get these buses to come to the downtown area? And Josh had always informed me that the one thing that about these bus drivers is they must have an area that's easily accessible. They must be able to pull in and out with no inconvenience, and that it's a dedicated spot for them. So that was the thing that we had to begin to look at, certainly for the downtown area. So currently there's a large number of tour buses, and the companies who stop in the Kingman Visitor Center, as stated in the 2019 Economic Development Plan, the number of visitors to the Kingman Visitor Center and Powerhouse is steadily increasing. Kingman Visitor Center welcomes between 125 and 150,000 visitors each year and greets an average of almost the average of 500 people a day. It's estimated that 39% of these visitors are international, and during the first 9 months of 2018, the Powerhouse Center sold in excess of $227,000 worth of merchandise. With all this considered, it'd be ideal to have those tour bus companies take some of that traffic and move it again towards our downtown area. So what we did is we looked at areas and said, all right, what would really work here? And so the first area that we looked at was right over here on 5th Street, okay? The ideal one is, if you look right over, okay, onto the right there would be this one right over here. That is an ideal parking space. It's set up, it's the parking lot that's just over to the south of us here, right above the attorney's office. The curbing is perfect. They need to step off to the curb. They need not to step into the street. And so that is an ideal area. We also, at the same time, took a look and say, well, what could we do on Oak Street, you know? And so we took a look at the other three arrows, or the other three arrows as you see there. There are also places where we could have a bus parking. And one of the things that we looked at was saying, okay, if you do it like this, and one of the things that came up is, well, what happens when we have our downtown events, okay? And we've dedicated this parking. Well, one of the things that we found out with the buses, it's really kind of an 8 to 5 kind of business. And so one of the things that we would certainly work out with the Public Works is to put signs up there that, number one, it's dedicated, number two, that there's a time limit, that the buses would be there from 8 to 5, so that when we have our First Friday events or we have those other things, that's open for public parking. So our ideal selection really is the one on 5th Street. We just looked at the other three as alternatives. As you know, Oak is a nice wide street, and we're really blessed with that. And so that would be an alternative there. But 5th really offers the best turning radius to bring the bus in and come down. So that's certainly one that we looked at there. The next area is what do we do down near, back across from near the powerhouse? And so the one thing that we do know about is that we have a lot of parking located, certainly over on Beale, where the arch and stuff is. So at least on this, we looked at saying, okay, this would be an area that again would be dedicated during the day for bus parking. That would allow them to move towards certainly the downtown area. So these are the areas that we really identify. Now, the one thing that I wanted to show you in this picture, if you look down towards the bottom and you look at the powerhouse there, people would say, well, what about the parking to the right? But I'd just like you to keep in mind that, you know, we'll have our new entrance sign right over there where third comes in, or first comes in, but down over, or third, I'm sorry, and then over here, second, my God, I'll get these right, won't I? But right over to your right, down at the bottom there, will be where our drive-through shield will be. So it's going to eliminate any of that parking in that area. So that will be that, and then, you know, as you see, it gets tight around here. Now, one of the things we'll be doing this year is finishing up that paving project around the powerhouse so that they have, you know, we'll still handle the bus traffic, but it'll move around there in a nice circle. So those are the areas, again, that we would designate and do the markings and stuff. So, yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Ta-da. Right. No, I don't think so. I'll call it. Okay. This area right in here, where we put the drive-through. Gives us parking. Now, one thing that could change in the future for us is, and again, I'm just putting it out, we started a conversation with our friends from the railroad and to revisit, you know, the area from the powerhouse to Fourth. Now, we're just in the very preliminary conversations. There's some new folks on the ground, so we can go back and kind of visit some of this old territory to talk about that. So we've had some conversation about how much property we could either lease or acquire, you know, on the railroad side. So the talk really now is they wanted it pretty narrow. We'd like to have it wider. And so that's just another area of possibility. But for right now, that's the area that we have identified as the bus parking, which you see right there would be near. As this photograph doesn't show the arch in it. So. Okay, as again, I just go back over it. Easy access for the buses to park and leave, the length of the space long enough to accommodate a tour bus. Tour bus is typically 45 feet, and the proposed locations all have at least 100 feet. Passengers can exit the bus onto the sidewalk. Least impact on adjacent facilities. Least possible people crossing the streets, again, keeping safety in mind. Short distances from the downtown Kingman. And it's city-owned public right-of-way, and so, you know, we would certainly be able to control that. The steps that we'd be taking: mark the tour bus parking, passenger loading and unloading areas, timing. Then we settle on all of that. Then Josh would be contacting the tour bus companies with maps, both electronically and stuff that we could mail out, to show them exactly where that parking would be available. And then probably the most important one is that I met with Jack Plante today, and so we would then, from this conversation, if this is all the area you'd all would like to see us proceed to, is that we will go ahead and work out the details on signage, et cetera, and then whatever we need to do in the realm of public safety so that we'd make this work. So that's really kind of it in a nutshell. So with that, I would entertain any questions or ideas.
Questions? Okay, Counselor.
Thank you for this. You know, this is really important to our business owners that are just up further from the powerhouse. Some of the feedback that I've been getting is that for the businesses, it feels like the city thinks that or the focus is just on getting them in the powerhouse and then getting them on their way. And so this is a good partnership to, to show that we're interested in helping tourists get up further into downtown and shop and spend their money. So I'm really glad to see this, and I think it's important, for that reason as well as just to increase sales tax. So I was glad to hear that Josh was going to contact the bus companies, but I don't know how many people noticed on the way to this meeting, there's a large, it's like a diesel pusher like that with a trailer behind it parked in front of the Oddfellows building right over here, taking up all of their parking. Because I'm sure they came to eat downtown and couldn't find any bus parking. So for that, it's just a private individual. It is not a bus company. Could we put up some signage on Andy Devine that says, bus parking at Fifth and Oak, or something like that, just so those types of people can also find a proper place to park? Because I know that gym's going to open in an hour and there's no parking there because, one person's taking it all up.
I think it's a little tougher call on the private side certainly for those large motor coaches. No real problem for us in working with the bus companies. But one point of clarification in sitting down with Josh and really talking about the whole bus thing is that, we have to do even more to sell Kingman, because for a lot of these folks, they control those buses pretty tightly.
Sure.
And for some of them, they run on a schedule. So we're going to have to try to create those excuses for them to stay longer, or to encourage the bus company for them to stay longer, because we still haven't looked at some of the counts, and they come in, they use the bathroom, and even if we have all the people at the counter selling all the merchandise, it still may not be fast enough for them to make that time frame for that bus that they're heading for their next stop. So we know that, with the advent of that stuff, that we're going to have to work a little bit harder on, the attraction piece. But, some of the things that we're certainly doing in the downtown can be those selling points. But you're right.
Absolutely.
We still got our work cut out for us there. But
We do.
right now, it's just to make it, for the lines that do patronize us, is to make it convenient and say, look, we can take this extra step. Can you get it downtown? So maybe that will put another 15, 20, 30, or, an hour into their schedule that
Right.
they can do it. But those drivers have said to us loud and clear, it must be easy.
Sure, that makes sense. Do you have an idea of timeline? How long it would take to get stripes painted?
I don't know.
Bus parking?
Rob is here, but I think in talking with Jack, I don't think it's going to take us too long.
Okay.
These are all easy access points, and so it would be the matter of the signage and the striping. And, and I would really lean to Jack on helping us out with that piece of it.
Okay.
We can certainly do the communication piece. So
There's a lot of excitement around this, so I want to be able to go back
I
and
know.
say a couple months. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor.
if I could. Thank you for the presentation, Gary, and this is really exciting. I hear the same comments, and I think along Fifth Street is really the ideal spot, with maybe some overflow along Oak Street is second best, with the concept of you start them on that side of town, you route them through downtown to the park and to the powerhouse. They'll have an opportunity to eat at our restaurants, visit our breweries, the many little shops down there that are, their products they lend themselves really well to tourists and not just the locals. So it would go that way, and then they'd come down to the park, the powerhouse, and you'd come back up. And that would really help with our awareness. It'd help to show just all the amazing things that are going on downtown. So I think along Fifth Street would be ideal. And when you're doing those markings with Jack Plante, and I direct this to the manager too, I know that when you drive past Mr. D's has a very large emblem of Route 66 or something painted in his parking lot. When we're doing the markings, just to throw it out there, would it be possible to put some sort of a Route 66 shield or an emblem or something like that in that dedicated space, so people get off the bus and they either take a picture right there, or then they get back on the bus to take a picture? Just another, low-cost alternative to help put as many breadcrumbs out there. Instagram, Facebook, people tagging Kingman, just to bring people more into our downtown.
I think we really have to keep safety in mind too. As you know, Vice Mayor, we still have those people that get in the middle of the road and lay down.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying do it in the middle of the road. I'm saying if you're going to designate,
One of these days, we'll have a bus
all I'm saying
over
is
there,
if,
so-
don't do it in the middle of the road. We don't
No,
want
no,
that.
no,
But
no, we'd
if you're
have to-
designating some space, maybe like in the very front of where the bus would be or the very back of the bus would be, somewhere where the bus driver is clearly not going to run somebody over. Maybe
Yeah, I
that
think
would be-
I think, you know, the other thing is we keep in mind as we do it, I know we're now looking at the
Sure.
Beale Street that whole setup, you know, for the master planning and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but, you know, where do we have those photo opportunities
Sure.
to
Or
come
do it
up?
on the
Because we've
sidewalk.
got the tank over here to create a photo opportunity. We're gonna have to just really look at some of these other ones, because one of the ones that we know coming up when the sign goes up for the powerhouse, we're gonna have another photo
Yeah.
op. I mean, it's gonna be there.
Right.
And then, you know, a few months later, we're gonna have that arch.
Right.
or
Well,
that
these two
drive-through
locations are great because they do route people through the downtown. The other
Yeah.
one by the park is less great in my opinion because people are still just going to go to the park and the powerhouse are not going to maybe go back up the street. So I think if you start them here, then they have to go that way.
We were just trying to do it on
You-
the street. that
You
gave
supply them
access.
with the, like you said, the electronic Kingman Main Street map, which is in multiple languages. I think it's a good idea.
Well, you know, sitting down with Jack too, there may be some other ideas that we haven't even thought about that, you know, he certainly knows the roads even better than we do. So
Questions? Counselor Watkins?
we'll proceed if,
Gary, thanks once again for all the work on this. I know it's a natural place to park down there on Beale by the arch. That's a perfect place for buses to park. But once again, isn't the whole goal of this is to get people more towards
the downtown.
downtown? So I really like what Vice Mayor Lingenfelter said and Councilwoman Staley said too about moving them more towards, you know, Fifth and Oak. You did mention one thing that perked my ears up because you said that the bus drivers oftentimes are waiting for these people to use the restrooms. They don't have much time. They use the restrooms at the powerhouse. How would we address that problem if we put parking there at Fifth and Oak?
Well, I mean, it's a toughie because, I mean, you know, then you're talking about the rest, you know, more than likely, one of the things we talked about too with Josh was that, you know, these folks would be at the powerhouse and this would be their next stop. These were the guys that have the time in their tour.
Okay.
So, you know, that would be, but
Okay.
it's something we could certainly think about in the future, but, you know, you're right, that's right now, they come in and, you know, you can almost see that driver clicking, so. Anything else, Josh?
Okay, thanks.
John, a little?
Councilman Watkins, what you're saying does bring up one point, that when we're going and contacting these motor coach companies, we're also going to want to talk with the downtown businesses about who will allow access to the restrooms, because not everybody's going to frequent the restaurants and the shops, but everybody's going to need to use the restroom because they have these long stretches. So we want to make sure we have several locations that are okay with people coming in, utilizing the restroom, and then we'll also want to look at some trash cans at that onboarding, offboarding site, because people do want to, you know, throw things out, clear out their space while they stop there. The reason that we were looking at a parking space over by the arch is because when the drive-through shield goes in, that parking that Mr. D's uses in other areas down there, that's going to go away. And so we're looking at an alternative space that we could still have motor coaches park.
Thanks.
Any other? Yes, go ahead.
You know, maybe what we need to look at too is talking to these tour companies and giving a presentation on why they should spend an hour in Kingman instead of 15 minutes or 2 hours and eat and shop and see the wagon trail, you know, in White Cliffs. I mean, we have plenty of reasons to stay here longer than 15 minutes. Maybe they don't know that. And so if we were able to put together a presentation and start going to them, you know, obviously they book out their tours in advance, but at some point I'm sure they make adjustments. You know, that might really help us to get them to park and get them to stay. Why not? This is a great town. Downtown is amazing. They're missing out by not being here longer than that 15
Well, the thing
minutes.
that we have to coordinate with them, I mean, we have to do the sales job for Kingman, but we're one link in several of that, in that long chain that they, you know, where they got to be at the next town or whatever. So, yeah, it's an art. It's an art into itself.
We need to fight for it. Art as Williams does, or
It's the first step, get them a parking space.
That's what tourism promotion and development is all about, right? So we got the pro in the room here, so. Right, Josh?
Any other comments, questions? I guess I just have more pragmatic question. So if they're 100 feet thereabouts, and these are 45 feet, so each space would have capacity for 2 buses, is that right?
Yeah, they really want it, like on Fifth Street, I'd say it's more like almost 1, because they do not like to back up. They want to be able to go in and out. And so when we go back over and even look at the stuff in front of the locomotive park, it's the same thing, drive in, drive out. Again, it's a matter of convenience for them, and this is what they've told us pretty clear with the drivers, so.
How many do we normally have at one time at the powerhouse?
On any given time,
1 to 6. Okay. So how many of these spaces are we going to mark off, or is the plan to mark off? All 4 of them?
well, right now,
Plus
what
the
we
fifth
had
one
looked
at
at was
the
2,
park?
the one on Fifth and the one over at Locomotive Park, you know. I'm gonna we're gonna sit down with Jack and look at, you know, how these other ones can be utilized. What are we gonna do to the parking and stuff?
Well, that is the problem, because the ones that are shown on Oak, 2 of those would eat up a whole bunch of employee parking
Okay.
and visitor parking for the complex. And the one that's on the other side of Fourth is, right now, looks like it conflicts with our CART bus stop. So we'd have to talk if we're looking for more than 1 space.
So
Over here.
for the foreseeable short future, we are looking at the one on Fifth and the one at the Locomotive Park.
Well, yes, and trying to figure out if actually we could do 2 on Fifth, on
2 vehicles.
on that, yeah.
Yeah, that would seem reasonable.
Yep.
Okay, thank
If you
you.
like what you see, we'll proceed.
I think there's a lot of head nods, yes. So, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, there appear to be no other comments about this, so thank you, Mr. Kellogg, and that concludes our agenda, so I am going to adjourn this meeting and ask us to reconvene at 6 for our regular meeting. Good evening, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Kingman City Council on Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. Could we have roll call, please?
Mayor Miles,
Here?
Vice Mayor Lingenfelter,
Here.
Councilmember Mello Keener,
Here.
Councilmember Nelson,
Here.
Councilmember Scott Staley,
Present.
Councilmember Watkins,
Here.
Councilmember Waite.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight's invocation will be given by Vance Miller from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Would you please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Our Father in heaven, how grateful we are for this day and for the things that we've been able to accomplish and for the growth that we've had. We ask a blessing to be upon this meeting this night, especially our elected officials, that they'll receive the inspiration and guidance and direction that they seek. How blessed we are to be in this city and to live in this land that we do. Be with each and every individual here in the Kingman area, that we can be more kind and loving and thoughtful one to another. We love thee and give thee thanks. And this we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The council may go into executive session for legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431-03A3 to discuss any agenda item. The following items may be discussed, considered, and decisions made relating thereto. Our first order of business will be appointments, and we have an appointment to the Municipal Utility Commission. The term for Aline Parker expired on December 31st, 2019. No new talent bank applications have been received for this commission. Ms. Parker has served for 3 years on the Municipal Utility Commission and has indicated her willingness to serve a 4th term. Staff recommends approval of reappointment. Is Ms. Parker here? Is the Municipal Utility Commission liaison? Who is that? Okay. Okay. Any comments? Is that a motion? That is a motion. We nominate. Is there a second?
I second it.
There is a motion and a second to reappoint Aline Parker to the Municipal Utility Commission. Is there any discussion? Then I would call for the vote. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Second order of business is a recognition and a proclamation of African American History Month. And I will read this. Okay. Whereas, during African American History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas African American History Month grew out of the establishment in 1926 of a week-long celebration, and where the full month of February was first designated by President Ford during the celebration of the United States bicentennial, and whereas the 2020 national theme for the observance is African Americans and the Vote, and emphasizes the centennial of the 19th Amendment and the culmination of the women's suffrage movement. And whereas the observance of African American History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its ideals, and whereas the City of Kingman continues to work toward becoming an inclusive community in which all citizens, past, present, and future, are respected and recognized for their contributions and potential contributions to our community, the state, the country, and the world, and whereas the City of Kingman is proud to honor the history and contributions of African Americans in our community throughout our state and nation. Now therefore, in recognition of African Americans past and present in the community, I, Jen Miles, Mayor of the City of Kingman, Arizona, do hereby proclaim the month of February to be designated as African American History Month, and in doing so, I encourage all citizens to celebrate our diverse heritage and culture and continue our efforts to create a world that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all. In witness thereof, I have hereto signed my hand and set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the city of Kingman on January 21st, 2020. Now we will move on to the call to the public, comments from the public. Those wishing to address the council should fill out request forms in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decision at a later time. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda, with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or group. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. And I should mention here that we have 2 people signed up to speak, and they noted their agenda item was on the consent agenda. So I'm going to ask these 2 people to speak now during call to the public, because there really won't be an opportunity to speak on a consent agenda item, even if it is pulled off the consent agenda, except for this opportunity. And so I would ask for Sandra Wetmore to speak at this point.
Good evening. I'm here this evening to request that the council remove item 4L from the consent agenda. At the request of a property owner downtown that could not be present tonight, Oasis Ventures LLC, she would like to have a 7-day notice for the substantial encroachment on Rickety Cricket's grain silo. She noticed in the paper on Sunday that there was there's going to be a change to the original permit, and so she was just requesting that we have a continuation or a 7-day notice required for the property owners within a 300-foot range to be given prior to a hearing date. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Dusty Yamaguchi.
Hi, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I too am here on agenda item L4. I'm a resident of downtown Phoenix who would be affected by the grain silo encroachment. 18 inches additional encroachment is substantial, and I just ask that you reconsider and possibly reevaluate this encroachment. I haven't gotten any notice regarding the information. I do live within the 300-foot radius. So if you would please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. I think is anyone else signed up to call to the public? Okay. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. And all matters listed here are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Are there any items that members of the council would like to remove?
I would like 4L to be removed.
Any other items?
Item F, please.
Any other items? Okay, then I would entertain a motion for approval of consent agenda items A through E and G through, I think that K, but I think the easiest way to do this, the whole consent agenda with the exception of items F and L.
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second to approve all consent agenda items with the exception of items F and L. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Item F, Kingman Industrial Park land sale. Parcel 2UEB, site 1.18 acres, was auctioned on January 2nd at 3 p.m. at the appraised value of $40,000. There is one qualified and winning bidder, Interstate Group. Staff recommends approval. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As always, I'd just like to, is there anyone from the Interstate Group present? No? I just wanted to thank them for this land sale, another land sale at our industrial park, and thank them for making our industrial park and Kingman their home. So with that, I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item F. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Item L, request for modification of encroachment permit at 532 Beale Street, engineering 19-0067. On September 3rd, 2019, the council approved an encroachment application for installation of a grain silo in a portion of the public right-of-way at 532 Beale Street. Council has previously approved a maximum encroachment of 3 feet into the Beale Street right-of-way. On January 12, 2020, staff received an email request from Terry Thompson requesting an additional 18 inches of encroachment for the grain silo. The amount of encroachment will increase from 3 to 4.5 feet, which will leave 7 feet of sidewalk for pedestrian traffic. City administration recommends approval. City Manager Foggin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So in the last meeting that we had regarding the silo, there was some confusion between, I believe, the property owner and the council and the pictures and the information that was provided at the council meeting. In conversations with Mr. Thompson, he had indicated and shown you pictures that his grain silo would only leave about little less than 5.5 feet of pedestrian walkable area, anticipating that that was what he needed for the grain silo to sit on. When we did the official survey of the property, the 3 feet left him 18 inches short, but in that survey, it also showed that we were taking the pedestrian walkway from just under 5.5 feet all the way out to 7 feet. And so in that, we just wanted to make sure that we had it correct, in that we were meeting the letter of the law, and at the same time knowing that we were going to use less sidewalk, or there would be more sidewalk that would be available to pedestrians. We felt like this was routine and a normal ask, in the fact that the council had approved and thought that they were giving the applicant enough space, only leaving just over or just under 5.5 feet. So maybe Carl would like to speak to that a little bit more, but that's really the intent, was that actually the footprint that's going to be used is actually less than what the applicant had intended to use. So
I guess I can just basically touch on the notice requirements. Those notice requirements were met when we actually had a hearing on the encroachment at that particular council meeting. This is, I think we looked at as more of a clarification on the actual footprint, which is why we weren't going through the full-blown hearing. We felt, I think it's like I say, it's less of an impact on the actual encroachment overall, once we got the actual numbers down correctly. So I think that's why we're at where we're at.
So this correction was due to the actual survey that was done after our meeting.
So based on the pictures that the council were provided at that meeting, the answer is yes, it does. Where the property pin was versus where the property owner thought it was, were off. So he had the grain silo project eating up much more of the sidewalk than was necessary. So after sizing it and getting the exact location as well as fencing for the project, they only need an additional 18 inches, which only, like I said, it leaves more than 7 feet of walkable space for pedestrians going by, which is better than what was presented at council by almost 2 full feet.
Manager, if I can have a follow-up question on that, what's the ADA required allotment?
36 inches.
36 inches, and this is 7 feet.
Yeah.
Got it.
Are there any other questions? Other questions? Then I would entertain a motion on item L, the request for modification of encroachment permit.
I would move that we approve the request for modification of encroachment on 532 Bill Street.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the request for modification of encroachment permit at 532 Beale Street. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes
Nay.
Nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Tonight we have no old business, no new business. So do we have a department report? And we have no department report. Okay, then we'll go to announcements. Limited to announcements, board and commission liaison reports, availability and attendance at conferences and seminars. Manager Foggin.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a few things for you. In keeping with the tradition of reporting on our census activity, we are actively doing census things, I guess. And one of the things that we are doing is we're working on signage, and for the ability to really communicate to the community that they need to be watching for the census, you will start seeing some signs going up in especially hard to count areas, but we've managed to map out signs so that no matter where you drive, there's a really great chance that you are going to see a reminder to take part in the census. These signs will be different in different locations so that people, as they drive around, won't get tired of looking at the same message. And we're also working on decals for the back windows of our vehicles, reminding people to take part in the census as well. So we've been active there. Also, we are staying up with our commitment to attend and participate in all the public kind of events and things that have tables. I know that Sylvia and at least one other person helped at the Veterans event last weekend, and we will be at the KRMC event. I can't remember the name of it. The senior event, yes. And so we are continuing that commitment as well. So things seem to be going well. We're still getting invited to be guest speakers at different civic and social groups, so we're glad that that's continuing to happen. And again, that invitation's out there. We're happy to send one of our team members to talk with folks about the importance of the census. So just want to make sure that everybody gets invited to our Parks Master Plan open house. That will be Thursday at our community center. That's located at 3345 Harrison. 3345 Harrison. It will be an open house that runs from 5:30 to 7. And anybody that has an interest in or wanting to kind of shape what parks and trails look like into the future, here's your opportunity. And so we're really hoping that people will show up and share their ideas and their thoughts on parks and trails. So that's this Thursday, 5:30 to 7. And then one final note, kind of a great news item, is that we had a second interview with our VISTA candidate, and she is a real firecracker. And we got notification over the weekend that she is going to accept our offer to come to Kingman. And her expected start date is mid-March. So had fun interviewing her, and we'll get her formally introduced around when she gets here. So we're excited about it. So I know it's a little bit late coming, but I think we've got a really great candidate. So the interview went really well last Thursday, so excited.
Fingers
Anyway,
crossed.
yeah, that's what I have for you tonight.
Councilor Watkins.
Well, just to echo what Manager Foggin said about the census, I know last week at Clean City Commission, Sylvia from city staff came and gave a report, and I guess she is doing that, or staff members are doing that about the census on all the different committee, so I think it's a great thing that we're doing, help educate more people.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I have nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Wade?
I have nothing to add.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I had the pleasure of going down last Monday to open up the Arizona State Legislature with Regina Cobb and listen to his State of the State. And I'm pleased to hear that the 2020 budget, 2021 budget that he's proposing is going to be the most rural-friendly budget that he's proposed so far. It's pretty exciting. Some of the things that are included in that budget, I think over $56 million to invest in smart corridors, a portion of Interstate 19, I-19, a portion of, I don't remember the other one, but the full stretch of Interstate 40 from the Arizona-New Mexico border to the Arizona-California border. He's going to be putting broadband, investing in broadband to make that a smart corridor, which is great news for Kingman. The other thing that they're doing is they're funding career and technical education, which is awesome. We're working really closely with Regina Cobb. She's committed to working with us. Some of you may already know that there's a group of us at the city, at MCC, at NAU, Arizona at Work, the JTED, Wave JTED, CAMA. We're all coming together. The next time is on, I think, the 28th of this month to talk about an advanced manufacturing industrial training center out in our industrial park to grow our own workforce, our talent pipelines, to make sure that the future companies that they have that skilled workforce that we're going to need. So really exciting. Look forward to working with Regina on that. And then next, I think it's Thursday, the 29th, I'll be going down to the legislature to testify to the State Transportation Commission. There's a group led by Representative Noel Campbell that's looking at trying to do something with the gas tax, reformulating that. So I'll be going down to talk about how that would be positive for Kingman and how we need all the HERF money that we can get. So look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a few things to mention, but I wanted to start with thanking the Economic Development Group today for bringing the SBDC here for a lunch and learn for staff. I think that was a really good experience because a lot of people know that the SBDC exists but don't know all the functions that it serves in really serving our small business development. And so that was a great lunch and learn, and I think that those are great, and it was well attended by our staff, so thank you.
Sylvia gets all the credit.
Who? Sylvia, yeah, I knew that. Thank you, Sylvia. Okay, it is the legislative season, and that means that we have to track, and we do track and advocate on a number of bills that would have a positive impact for Kingman. And today we sent a letter of support to the Senate Appropriations Committee that I've handed out a copy to the council. But basically this is support for Senator Borelli's Senate Bill 1112, which advocates for a veterans home in Kingman. I think this would be an 80-bed home, and it's one that we desperately need in order to serve, especially our veterans who are of 60 and older, of which we have a large percentage that have physical and chemical impacts from previous wars. And so we did send in support for that bill. And if we are fortunate that Senator Borelli acquires the $25 million that bill asked for Mojave County to have this veterans home, there still would need to be a large match from the federal government. So interestingly, we've already been advocating with all of the senators, federal senators, and Congressman Gosar to garner their support in the event that this money is obtained. Then we want their support in getting our federal match, because it's a large match that's required. But it's an exciting thing, and Senator Borelli has worked very diligently to get this on the agenda, so we wanted to support it fully. And along those lines, last week I attended several things, but one of them was the Mojave Health Coalition, which was a group that was called together by Dr. Zeri, who's the chief of staff at Warm C. And we actually had a very large group that showed up, and it included representatives from all of our federal senators, congressmen, and our CEOs of hospitals, a lot of stakeholders. Long story short, it's going to be a nonprofit. We've been working on the mission goals to advocate for shared services, collaborative services among our healthcare providers, but also to advocate for reform in rural healthcare so that we get better healthcare delivery in our rural areas. And we have 4 committees that were they were self-selected. They signed up, and chairman and chair people just signed up as I'll be the chairman of that committee. So there's a lot of passion about this and the great need. And it kind of aligns with the veterans, because one of the committees is Veterans Committee. So all these pieces come together, and as we support improved health care, we're hopeful that we'll get things like the Veterans Home and other changes that help us in Mojave County. I also attended the Future Summit for MCC, and that's kind of an exciting process that they're going through, because we're all partners in that in workforce development. And again, all the people that the Vice Mayor mentioned are at the table saying, okay, here's how we see the need for pipeline and talent development in our communities so that we can support our growth in our business and industry community and government. I would like to mention that we had a beautiful Veterans Resource Fair last Friday. And I keep saying veterans, but there's just a lot going on right now with respect to supporting our veterans. And I'd like to thank all the people, and JAVC and Pat Farrell and all of those that worked so hard to pull that together. This was the first year that they had a fair like this in each one of our cities. Before, it had been called a stand down. It was just in Bullhead. Now we're doing it in each city. And we had over 38 entities that were there giving support to the veterans. So that was a really good effort by many in our community, including the city, we had our representation there. I think our public safety was there, and so it was a good show by all. And I would echo that the senior fair this Saturday is an opportunity at KRMC at the Hualapai campus for those that think themselves senior. It's a good opportunity to get a lot of good health information about yourself. And I think that's it. Oh, no, that's not it. Next week, one more thing. I will be on the 29th, I'll be in Flagstaff, because we are having the first meeting of the I-40 mayors. And I'm sure that this will be all the mayors with cities along I-40. And guess what we're going to be advocating for, I'm sure? Improved I-40, which we need a lot, and other things of common interest to all of us in the North Corridor. So that's what I have. And with that, I will call on number 9, which are council requests for future work session agenda items and or calendar adjustments. We have, this, okay, Vice Mayor, did you have anything? If not,
No,
this is a
I'm good.
first. This is a first, okay. Okay. You thought about it, thank you. Okay. Well, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Whoa. I can get